Just got finished rewatching Illinois defeating USC Trojans game tape, and there's a lot that I like. The player grades episode, let's go.
You are Locked On Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome all to the Monday morning edition of Locked On Illini. Thank you all so much for making us your first listen each and every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. My name is Sonny Verma, your host here at Locked On, where I continue to provide you coverage each and every day. Everything you see here is absolutely free. If you're feeling generous, I would not mind if you want to hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We hit over 3,500 subs over the weekend on YouTube. I'm so grateful for each and every one of you in the community. Another group that I'm very grateful for is this Illinois football coaching staff with the performance that they pulled off on Saturday with a game that most people, including me, had them losing. They kind of, in some sort of ways, shocked the world. Especially with their performance, that bounce back performance against the week before, which was quite honestly one of the worst performances I've ever seen, and certainly under the Brett Bielema era. But while the world counted them out, Brett Bielema and the staff, they did not. I spent most of my Sunday afternoon, once the Bears game was over, go Bears, to rewatch this USC Illinois game, and I have my player grades in my notes set up and ready to go. So I figured we'd go through that. If we get a chance to talk about Malik Elzy by the end of the episode, I will. Otherwise, I promise I'll talk about that on tomorrow's episode. But let's get started. And of course, as usual, we're going to get started at the quarterback position. For Luke, I'm giving a solid A. Look, Luke Altmyer is not the best quarterback in the country, but I'm telling you, he's in the group in the tier below. He's worth mentioning in that sort of category. The performance that he put off on Saturday, 20 for 26, 328 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Now, he didn't have any long passes, and I believe it was 223 yards of his 328 came on yards after the catch, but I also think that's kind of by design. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but I think the plan was clear that you hike the ball, Luke, make a quick decision. I think I saw on PFF College Football that the average time for him to throw was 2.2 seconds. That's by design. Okay, that's this coaching staff seeing what's gone on all season long with that offensive line and not letting the offensive line be its own worst enemy. The idea for Luke Altmyer was, hey, take the ball, make a quick decision, and most of the time he made the right one. Once again, going up against a more highly touted quarterback, I would argue Luke had the better game, just like he did against Mensa a couple weeks back. Look, having a third-year starter under the same coaching staff, you have a veteran presence back there, a guy who knows which mistakes not to make, and he knows how to execute a game plan. There's no environment in the country that I would not trust Luke Altmyer in. Brett Bielema said so himself in the post-game press conference that when he looked over at Luke, and Luke just kind of gave him a little head nod, and Brett said he knew he was fine. I said this in my immediate reaction post-game show of the USC game, that I don't know if there's another quarterback in the country I would want to lead a fourth quarter drive other than Luke Altmyer. Again, saying he's not the best quarterback in the world, but the guy has ice in his veins. And I know those post-game reaction shows are about 24 hours to say whatever you want, but I'm sitting here recording this one telling you exactly that when it comes to at the end of the game, if there's one guy I need to lead that final drive, it simply is Luke Altmyer. I also want to bring up a stat from Orange and Blue News. Josh Cruz pointed out that this was Altmyer's 8th game-winning drive through the last 3 seasons at Illinois. Again, there's just Luke Altmyer, I wish I could give him a higher grade. It's just he didn't make any long plays. It was a lot of these plays were the athletes that he was throwing it to, but all credit to them. Next up, we'll go to the running backs. The running backs is an interesting one, and I want to know in the comment section what grades you would give for all these units as I'm talking about them, because the running backs one, for me, it's interesting, right? You watch the actual tape and what they produced on the field, you want to give them a solid B maybe B+. But two of those running backs, Caden Fagan and Khalil Valentine, were also responsible for two fumbles that, quite honestly, probably should have cost Illinois that football game. And that needs to be punished when it comes to overall grade-wise. And so ultimately, I think I'm going to go with a B- and literally the lowest B-. When they weren't coughing up the football, Khalil Valentine looked really good. And he looked like USC may have been the faster team on the field, but Khalil Valentine looked like he could keep up with all of them. And Caden Fagan, with that screen pass that he caught and ran all the way for a touchdown, again, you just see how capable of a running back he is when he just has some momentum going. That first fumble, I understand why the replays had to confirm it was a fumble, but I truly think that the refs just did not do a good job blowing that ball dead when they should have earlier. That led to the eventual fumble. But Caden Fagan, he wasn't hiding behind that. He said that he can't put himself in the position for the refs to make that call. Khalil Valentine's, it was just bad. Just a bad fumble that could not have happened. And quite honestly, all of our hearts sank when that happened. We all knew that USC was going to come back to score, but again, we're grateful that we had Luke Altmyer on the final drive to make up for that mistake. But I think I'm going to go with the B-, but like the lowest B- you can absolutely guess. Kind of teetering towards that C+ area. I liked what I saw on film, except for the two huge blunders close to the end zone for Illinois. Probably my favorite tape from Saturday was the wide receiver room. The wide receivers, I'm going to give a good solid A. Guys, 10 people caught passes on Saturday, including the quarterback. Colin Dixon went 4 for 90. Hank Beatty 6 for 81. Caden Fagan had a touchdown, 3 for 67. And Justin Bowick had 1 for 25. Also had a touchdown. Hudson Clement had 2 for 19. But basically the game plan seemed to be on Saturday, hey, Luke is going to get you the ball. You make a play afterwards. And a lot of the times on Saturday, that's exactly what these wide receivers did. Again, it wasn't just necessarily one guy, though Colin did have 4 for 90. It was spread out, and everybody was counting on to make plays, and those guys absolutely made plays. It's simply brilliant game planning by the coaches and even better execution by the wide receivers. I just think they were the best unit out on Saturday today, and they deserve all the love that they're getting. As for the tight ends, there wasn't really much to talk about, but I mean, I feel like every player grades episode this season, I've given them like C grades just because nothing has jumped out. I mean, 3 guys caught passes. You had Abney, Rusk, and Tanner Arkin all make first down catches in this game, and the blocking was pretty solid. I'll give them a B-. Again, nothing jumped out at you, but I think, if you're going to give all the credit to the offensive line, which I will in the next segment, about not letting them get to Luke Altmyer, well, the tight ends had a little bit to do with that too, and the help blocking that they've had. Again, it looked bad the previous week against Indiana, but got to give credit where credit is due. So I'm going to give B- to the tight ends for their performance against the Trojans. And finally, we get to the offensive line. No group had more pressure on them coming into this game than the offensive line and Bart Miller's crew. It seemed like the entire talk last week was about how USC led the entire country in sacks. And after watching that debacle against the Indiana Hoosiers the week prior, there was a lot of expectations that Luke would be running for his life again on Saturday. But again, the coaching staff had a brilliant game plan, and the offensive line kind of just returned to its roots of just being a physical offensive line. Quite honestly, as good of potential NFL players that USC has on their defensive line, I just think the game plan worked for Illinois. They basically ran it right up the middle constantly, just went vertical instead of horizontal. And maybe that's just something that the scouting showed that Illinois should be able to do, but they executed it perfectly. I'm not going to give an A+ because there were a couple penalties, I believe, by Brandon Henderson that could have stalled things for the Illini. But overall, for as down as I've been on them essentially all season long, I have to give credit where it's due, and that's to Bart Miller and his crew. Whatever they did on Saturday, it worked. Quite honestly, we have a tough matchup against Ohio State in a couple of weeks. But if we can continue to the tradition, essentially, over the last couple of seasons of the offensive line starting off slow, but then turning things around as the season progresses, if that trend continues this year and the offensive line plays like what it should be, and that's the top third in the Big Ten Conference, I really like where this Illini team is headed. That's it for the offensive side of the football. We'll switch to the defensive side of the football right after this. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5-hour energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. What I love most is how portable they are. Big taste, tiny shot. You can take it wherever and get the boost when you need it. And honestly, I love about how fast that boost takes to kick in, and it's sugar-free true. So I don't have to worry about crashing later. Enough with the boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5-hour energy shots. Get the favorites you love or be bold and try something new in-store and online at www.5hourenergy.com or Amazon today. All right, and welcome back. If you haven't hit the like button yet, please do so. We've got a lot more content coming for you right here on Locked On Illini. Let's switch to the defensive line. The defensive line is one of those where almost all season long has just kind of been the most consistent unit on the team. Nothing is jumping out at you, but James Thompson Jr. has been a great pickup. Leon Lowry had some good moments on Saturday. They had some decent pressure on Mayava, 15 pressures and 5 hits. They did force a couple incompletions, but really they just did their job, right? Nothing jumped out at you except for a Gabe Yakus drive. James Thompson Jr. had a couple pressures himself, but they did their job against a USC offensive line that a lot of people were telling me was the best in the Big Ten Conference. And if that's the case, then moving forward, I do think that Illinois is going to be absolutely okay. Again, I've said this. I think the transfer portal and Brett's usage of bringing in almost entirely new defensive front has paid off dividends for the Illini, because I really like the guys that they've brought in, and they're all doing a great job at their roles. Speaking of boring, the linebackers, I would probably give a B minus, maybe a B grade to Dylan Rosiak. Had a fantastic interception in the first half, which was one of the highlights of the game. But there were some missed tackles against USC that you just don't want your group to be making. For the most part, they had a very solid game. They limited USC's running game, which was something that I was kind of afraid of, to see if they could get some long runs off. USC's running back wasn't able to do that. Waymon Jordan, I believe, had one long run that entire game. But again, a lot of times these USC wide receivers caught the ball in traffic, and the first or second guy could not bring them down. And that's just not acceptable. I get that USC has some absolute athletes at the wide receiver spot, including Mekhi Lemon, who quite honestly could be the first wide receiver taken in the draft. But still, if you're going to be a respectful Big Ten defense, you've got to take care of it. The secondary is going to be tough to grade, because if you take a look at those numbers, the numbers are bad. Mayava had a fantastic game himself. Mayava himself was 30 for 43 for 364 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Mekhi Lemon, as I mentioned, had 11 catches for 151 yards, and it seemed like every USC tight end was able to get in on the action as well with catching throws. But I don't know how much of that was poor playing. Keep in mind, Matthew Bailey went down in that game, and so Sabur Kareem actually came in and did a very commendable job. Not great, but a commendable job spotting Matthew in that second half. But really, ultimately, this defense also kept USC from making big plays. I think Jeremy Warner said something along the lines of USC was only able to have 3 30-plus yard plays, and for a team that's built on those type of breakout plays, maybe that was kind of part of Aaron Henry's game plan. When you have younger players playing in their positions, by the way, Tanner Heckel continue to get picked on, and that's just not a match. Luckily, we don't have as many high-powered offenses now that we are done with Indiana and USC. Obviously, we have Ohio State in a couple weeks, but right now, teams know to exploit Tanner Heckel, who's just simply a good young player, but he's not ready for the moment right now. He's not ready for top-tier Big Ten football. But regardless, back to my original point, the team did allow USC to gain yardage, but they didn't allow the big plays, which I think might have been kind of part of the design. It's frustrating The Talk Illini Discord was frustrated about this bend, don't break style of defense that Aaron Henry has been running with the Illini for a couple seasons now. But quite honestly, again, it was working. 32 points, it seems like it's a lot that you gave up to USC, but I believe 32 points is the lowest output that the Trojans have had all year long. But this is going to clearly be a concern. Matthew Bailey, I don't have an update on that injury yet. Hopefully Brett's going to talk about it later on today. Hopefully he's coming back. It was nice to see Jaheim Clark come back, and he did have a fumble recovery in that first quarter, which again was huge and kind of jump-started just the stadium. The stadium was loud. There was a lot of energy there. The Illini fans themselves, let me give you guys a grade, an A+, an A+ to Geese Memorial Stadium. Every one of you that was at that game, you guys put on such a good show. And that's just for me watching on TV. You can see it on social media. Some of the shots that these professional photographers got showed that Geese Memorial Stadium, when it's rocking, is a place you want to be. So you guys get an A+. And finally, we'll wrap up with special teams, which I'm going to give an A to. David Alano had, I believe, 2 field goals, 45, and then, of course, the game winner, 41 yards. Again, just talk about an incredible amount of pressure on you, or any normal kid, but David has always exuded this sort of confidence about himself. And I know this because Brett Bielema has said that essentially since he came on campus, that he thinks David could be the best kicker that he's ever coached. And again, I don't know if there's many other kickers in college football. When you watch as much college football as I do, that trope about college football kicking being bad is absolutely true. And Illinois fans, quite honestly, we've just been incredibly spoiled with our special teams over the last few years, especially when it comes to our field goal kicking. Chase McLaughlin, shout out, set, I believe, a record on Sunday with a 65-yard field goal. But David Alano is a guy who, in a couple seasons, I think can absolutely join Chase in the NFL. Just an incredible clutch kick for David, 41 yards. Again, the snap, the hold, everything was perfect. And once that ball went through the uprights, everyone could finally breathe. Football is played 3 ways: offensively, defensively, and special teams. And when it comes to special teams, more often than not, Illinois and Bielema, they do tend to have an advantage. And finally, I'm just going to talk about the coaching staff. The coaching staff I'm also going to give an A to. I'm not an A+ because I think there's issues with Aaron Henry's defense. Let's just start off talking about that. Bend, don't break. It's just incredibly frustrating. It's one of those, when you watch as much college football as I do, and you see what good defenses look like, you just kind of wonder what's going on. Are we not recruiting to the level? I know we're not. I know we're not recruiting to the level that other schools are, but we are in year 5 now, and this is Aaron Henry's 3rd season as defensive coordinator. I understand that he's got a special relationship with Brett. I'm not saying he failed in this game in any sort of way. In fact, if I'm going to be honest, if I had to give these individual coaches a grade, let's just start there. Aaron Henry, I'll give a C- to. He got the job done ultimately, but there's a certain feeling that I shouldn't have. And that's when every time USC got the ball, I just went ahead and assumed that they were going to score a touchdown. And that's just not supposed to be acceptable, especially at a university like Illinois in the Big Ten Conference. Let's play some defense. If we're talking about grades, though, Barry Lenny Jr., I'm going to give an A, and I'm very close to giving an A+. I just think the game plan that they had to adjust for the struggles for the offensive line, to basically take advantage of the lack of physicality of the USC defense, Luke's quick throws, as I mentioned earlier, I think they all just worked. I love some of the brilliant play calling. You had the champagne special called for, and Luke Altmyer was able to catch a touchdown by Hank Beatty. I think, for all the struggles that the defense had, the offense deserves all the love in the world. This quite honestly could have been their best performance all season long. They've scored more in previous games, but when you talk about the type of athletes that are on that USC defense, Illinois' game plan simply executed exactly what they were supposed to do. And that you have to give credit, of course, to the players, which I have, but also this is a coaching staff that was under fire coming into this week. After that 63-10 win or loss against the Indiana Hoosiers, I'm not even kidding. I had some people in the Discord questioning if Brett Bielema was the right man to be in charge of the Illinois program. I'm not kidding. That just tells you how high some of these frustrations levels were. But On the offensive side, they absolutely came through, and they deserve a tip of the cap. The highest grade of the game, though, is going to go to the head coach, Brett Bielema. Again, a guy who was under fire. As I mentioned, some people were questioning whether he should be in charge of this program, but you saw an example on Saturday of exactly why he is not just the right coach, but in my opinion, a top 15, top 10 coach in the entire country, and someone that Illinois needs to hold on to as long as they possibly can. Dan Katz, a.k.a. Big Cat, a former Wisconsin Badger, and he's, of course, a fan of Brett Bielema when he was the head coach of the Badgers. And he talked about how frustrating to see where the Wisconsin Badgers program has essentially fallen to. And his direct message to a lot of Illini fans on the kickoff shows was saying, hey, hold on and appreciate Brett Bielema as long as you can. Give him a big hug. Brett did discuss after that Indiana game that he started watching game immediately on the way home. He talked about how the team really leveled up when it comes to practices all week long. They understood that in a lot of ways their reputation was on the line, and they came through. This was a game that they were ultimately 6.5-point underdogs in. They've been underdogs the last 2 weeks now, and this was a game where if they lost, they would have fallen out of the top 25. Obviously, it was a sold-out homecoming at the stadium. The energy was there. If Illinois didn't show up and USC got up big early, or they ultimately won big early, I do think all the energy and the positive momentum coming into the season would have been drained. But now we sit here at 4-1, basically the same record that we had last year right at this point. And quite honestly, the schedule does get easier. I'm not saying the schedule is easy. We're going to have Purdue next week, and then, of course, Ohio State the following weekend. Then there's a bye week, and then we're going to have a really tough matchup at Washington. But overall, we all know the first half of the schedule is the daunting one. The second half is where hopefully Illinois is going to be able to rack up wins. And the fact that we're already at 4 now, we're 2 away from bowl eligibility. Hopefully Illinois can take care of Purdue next week. I believe right now they're 10.5-point favorites. If you can take care of Purdue, you're already at 5 wins, and then you just need 1 more for bowl eligibility. I know that's not our goal anymore, but even that thought is nice. That no longer are we striving of just being a bowl eligible team. If we can get to 6, great. That's a good start, but we got a lot more damage to do, and I think we got the right guy in charge to do that. Let me know your grades in the comment section. I'll review it afterwards, and I'll give my responses. One of the tools that help make a huge difference for business owners is Quo, formerly OpenPhone. It's the same great business phone system you've heard me talk about before, just with a new name. And here's why it matters. Every missed call is money left on the table. When every customer conversation counts, you need a phone system that keeps you connected 24/7. Quo is the #1 business phone system that streamlines customer communications. It works right through an app on your phone or computer, so no more carrying around 2 phones or relying on a landline. And their built-in AI agent is a game changer. It can answer after-hour calls, it can capture leads, and keep businesses moving even when you're off the clock. See why over 90,000 businesses trust Quo, formerly OpenPhone. Get started free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedoncollege. That's QUO.com/lockedoncollege. And if you've got existing numbers with another service, Quo will port them over at no extra charge. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you will unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I'll tell you what I love about FanDuel. Sometimes I want to bet a player prop. Sometimes I want to bet a team total, maybe an over and under. Whatever I want to do, FanDuel will allow me to do it. So whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. And welcome back. As I suspected, we're going a little long, so I know a lot of people have questions about this Malik LZ leaving the team. I'll get to that on tomorrow's episode. That way I can spend about 8 to 10 minutes talking about it thoroughly instead of trying to cut it up and knocking it out in a minute and a half or two. But yeah, unfortunately, he left the team. I'll discuss that more on tomorrow's episode. I did want to say Illinois has gone up one spot to number 22 in the AP poll. 10.5-point favorites against Purdue on Saturday. I'm kind of curious on where I'm going to eventually fall on that line. I will have a crossover episode later on this week with Nick Arvin, the Purdue correspondent for the Locked On Network. So make sure you're subscribed to this channel. Again, all day, every day, I'm going to have content for you. If there's any breaking news, I will come on live immediately afterwards. It's another big moment on Locked On. College football fans, Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside two-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts. A college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. That's going to wrap it up for today. Again, hit the like button on your way out, and until next time, ILL. Love you guys.